I would say that silver has been a very dynamic commodity, Avni. We had gold ETFs for quite a long time in Indian markets. In international space, if you see, the silver ETF have been for a decade or so. I think more than a decade or so. They have their presence in the developed world, in the developed financial markets. Uh, so particularly, I would say silver. Why it is creating so much of a buzz? First, that's a very dynamic commodity. It's a very dynamic asset class. I should not say commodity. It's a dynamic asset class for a simple reason that it is part of the bullion segment too. At the same time, it is used highly for the industrial consumption purposes too. So around 60% to 65% of the consumption of silver goes for various industrial uses, and the rest is all the bullion characteristics. Now, you have seen or we all have witnessed lately in 2020 when the risk assets actually took a toll because of the COVID pandemic, the uncertainty and all. The bullion markets took a different stance. They are inversely correlated. They are risk-averse asset class, and therefore the bullion took the opposite side of what was happening to the risk assets, particularly in this case the equity markets or so. So they thrive. The bullion segment thrive in uncertainty. They thrive in geopolitical tensions. They thrive when the inflation tendencies are high. The inflation is on the upside trajectory. Having said that, 2020 and even in 2008 and 9, when the entire financial market was in doldrums, so bullion touched, I think, an all-time high at that time, say around $1,900 levels, $1,920 levels at that time. And in 2020 early August 2020, gold touched an all-time high of around $2,080 or so. Same case with silver too. The silver also touched highs, it keeping in tandem the characteristics of the bullion market or the bullion segment. But coming back to the silver, the bullion serves, I would say, the bullion segment serves as a risk diversifier, the better risk adjusted return by including 10 to 15% of bullion into your portfolio. And therefore, 2020 is a recent example when everything was on the downside for the risk assets. The savior, if somebody has bullion in their portfolio, the savior would have been gold and silver, because they were touching highs almost every other week. So it mitigates those losses which you incur in these times of uncertainty, in times of geopolitical tensions, even with respect to 2000, I would say 18, 19, when the US-China trade war was on the peak of the talk of the town. So I would say that those conditions also I would say that help the bullion segment to perform better. So with all these characteristics, bullion definitely makes a purposeful stuff to be part of the portfolio. Now, coming back to silver, this is what the characteristic of the bullion is, and 40% or say around 35% of silver consumption is largely towards bullion segment. You consume it as a bullion segment. You have jewelries, you have artifacts, etc., etc. So it is consumed largely on those part of demand. Now, silver, as I said, has around 60% consumption on industrial side too. Now, it goes pretty well to say that if the risk assets do well, which means the economy is doing well. So that's why the risk assets do well. And when the economy does, a consumption of silver or the industrial metals always been in demand. It's a highly electrical, conducive commodity. So I think when the economy does well, on the other side of it, as a bullion space, it should come down. The prices should not take an upward trajectory. Actually, they should decline. But at the same time, since the industrial consumption goes up well, the economy starts moving on the upside. And that's what has happened after 2020. The entire year, the 2021, has been seeing an uptrend on manufacturing, personal consumption. All those reasons make good for the economy to move up. The numbers are sound. The numbers are certain economic indicators, I would say, are much higher than even pre-pandemic levels. So when the economy is doing well, the industrial consumption of various metals goes up, and therefore the demand goes up for these kind of metals. And if the demand goes up, the prices have all the reasons to. So therefore, it's a very dynamic. It's a kind of a mix of bullion and industrial metals, Avneet, which makes silver a very bright spot for people to participate. Having said that, as I mentioned, it's a very volatile and a dynamic commodity. So you never know. A lot many factors affect all the asset classes today. So host of the factors like currency, what's happening with respect to the Federal Reserve or the central bankers, the policy, the monetary policy, all those things definitely affect the demand and supply picture, the investment demand, I would say particularly, which is critical at certain point of time, is important for the price to be judged how it will gonna be in the future. But silver has sometimes, even if the economy does well, and if the bullion segment is not doing well, you won't see silver prices moving upside, or the demand of silver moves on the up trajectory. So overall, therefore, I say that I would say it's a trader's asset class. Means they just love this particular asset class for trading purposes because of the dynamism and because of the volatility which we witness. It's a very good product. It's an easy to understand product. People don't know. People don't have to be taught too much about this particular product. People know about silver, so the knowledge is pretty much there among the stakeholders who might participate for silver ETF, and for retail too. It serves as a purpose beyond gold to hedge your risks as a portfolio diversifier for better risk adjusted return. So Avneet, I think all in all, I would say that it might be that gold would lose the charm as far as the interest of retail participation is concerned. So silver ETFs might be a good starting point for people go beyond bullion in gold to see something on silver ETFs too.